Ever since she was a little girl, the main character had dreamed about the day she would announce her first pregnancy. She imagined gathering her family around the dinner table, seeing their curious faces, and then sharing the news that would make everyone smile. Now that the moment was finally here, she wanted it to be special and unique. She planned to keep the secret until Sunday night's family dinner. Her heart fluttered with excitement with every detail she planned. In the quiet of her bedroom, she would gently touch her stomach, which, while still barely showing, already felt so significant. Every little movement inside seemed to bring a new wave of emotion. She had even bought a small symbolic gift for each family member, something that would delicately reveal the baby's arrival. To her, this wasn't just news, it was a memory in the making. Her anxiety was matched only by her genuine joy. Her partner was enthusiastically involved in the plan. Together they had chosen little boxes containing tiny baby shoes, each wrapped in gold paper. The idea was to hand them out during dinner, one to each relative, and watch as the realization spread through the room like a wave of happiness. This was the kind of memory they wanted to hold on to forever, something intimate, simple, and meaningful. In the days leading up to the gathering, the main character could barely contain her excitement. She pictured her mother's surprised expression, her father's tears of joy, and the tight hugs from her grandparents. It felt like a movie script, carefully written to turn the occasion into something magical. She played the scene over and over in her head. For her, this was more than an announcement. It was a rite of passage. However, there was a small knot of worry in her heart. She knew her younger sister well. She was often impulsive and craved attention. Even though she wanted to believe the moment would be respected, a little voice inside warned her that something unexpected might happen. She chose to push those negative thoughts away and focus on the beauty of what was to come. After all, this was the beginning of a new chapter. On a phone call with her best friend, she shared the plan. Her friend praised her creativity and agreed it would be an unforgettable day. The main character felt validated, as if she were doing everything right. She didn't just want to tell everyone the news. She wanted to create a special atmosphere that would be remembered forever. It was her way of celebrating the new life that was on its way. That night, lying in bed, she closed her eyes and imagined the future. She pictured holding the baby, hearing the laughter at family gatherings, and telling the story about the day they made the announcement. For her, everything had to start in the most special way possible. It felt like she was writing the first page of the diary for the child growing inside her. Her partner, sensing her emotion, hugged her and reassured her that they were in this together, every step of the way. His support was crucial in making her feel secure. He was just as anxious, but he loved seeing the sparkle in her eyes. The bond between them grew even stronger. It was as if the baby's arrival was already transforming their lives.
The next morning, the main character started getting the little gifts ready. She placed each baby shoe into a box, added a heartfelt note, and tied them with delicate ribbons. The simple act of preparing these details made her feel like her heart was overflowing with love. Everything was going exactly as she had dreamed. She could hardly wait for Sunday night. Before going to sleep, she said a silent prayer. She asked that nothing would ruin this moment she had been building with so much care. She wanted the reveal to be a positive milestone, a symbol of family unity and happiness. Little did she know that her plans were about to be disrupted in an unexpected way by someone she never would have suspected. And before we continue this story, tell me, have you ever had a special dream that was interrupted by someone? If you like real emotional stories like this one, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell now, because we always have stories that touch your heart here. The younger sister had always been the center of attention. Since she was a child, she had a habit of stealing the spotlight on any occasion, whether with exaggerated jokes or unexpected behavior. She grew up with a vibrant but also competitive personality. Her desire to be noticed was with her at all times. For her, applause and attention were like her daily fuel. Unlike the main character, who valued discretion and careful planning, the younger sister preferred being in the limelight. Social media was a natural extension of her life. She published every little detail: her breakfast, her daily outfits, small complaints. There was no filter for her emotions. This constant need for visibility made her act without thinking about the consequences. She was spontaneous, but often inappropriate. Between the two of them, the relationship had always been defined by love, but also by rivalry. The protagonist, being the older sister, felt it was her role to be the responsible one. The younger sister, in turn, saw this attitude as a suffocating shadow. Because of this, little disputes were a daily occurrence. Who got more attention? Who received more compliments? Who was remembered more often? Everything turned into a competition. The news of the pregnancy, even though it hadn't been officially announced yet, had already reached the younger sister's ears. She noticed signs. She became suspicious of the knowing looks exchanged between her sister and her partner. A gut feeling told her something big was about to be announced. And, as always, her curiosity was eating away at her. She couldn't stand the idea of being left out of something important. One morning, upon seeing her sister handling small golden boxes, she couldn't resist the temptation. She acted casual, but paid close attention to every detail. It only took one quick glance for her to put the pieces together. That could only mean one thing: a special announcement. She felt a mix of surprise, happiness, and at the same time, jealousy. Why hadn't she been the first to know?
Overcome by emotion, she grabbed her phone. The impulse was stronger than any rational thought. She opened the Instagram app and quickly typed a suggestive caption. "There's going to be a new baby in the family." To go with it, she posted an old photo of the two of them smiling together. She didn't think about the consequences, only about how she would be praised for sharing such happy news. Within minutes, the comments started pouring in. Friends, distant relatives, and acquaintances were celebrating in her stories and sending her kind messages. The younger sister smiled, satisfied. She felt like an essential part of the event, as if she had given the world the first big reveal. It was exactly the kind of attention she was always seeking. For a few moments, she truly believed she was doing something positive. After all, she thought, who wouldn't want to see their happiness shared? It didn't occur to her that she had stolen her sister's chance to tell her own story. In her mind, she was just spreading the love. Her impulsive reasoning overshadowed any notion of respect. As the number of likes grew, so did her feeling of triumph. She pictured herself as the family's official messenger, the one who was always in the know. Deep down, however, a sliver of doubt appeared. Would her sister be angry? She brushed the thought aside with the idea that no one gets offended by good news. What the younger sister didn't know was that at that exact moment, the protagonist's phone was already buzzing non-stop. The avalanche of notifications brought with it not only smiles, but also a painful feeling of betrayal. While the younger sister was feeling proud of her actions, the older sister was beginning to feel the first major crack in her dream of a special announcement. The protagonist's morning had started off quietly until a notification woke her up earlier than usual. When she opened her phone, she saw she had dozens of unread messages. Relatives, distant friends, and acquaintances were all enthusiastically congratulating her. Confused, it took her a few seconds to understand the reason for this sudden flood of attention. With trembling hands, she opened Instagram. That's when she saw her sister's post, a picture of the two of them, accompanied by the caption that gave away the most intimate secret she had been keeping. "There's going to be a new baby in the family." Her heart started racing, as if she'd been punched in the stomach.
What was supposed to be a carefully planned announcement had become a virtual spectacle. The protagonist felt a wave of heat rush through her body, mixed with indignation and despair. The dream of the family dinner, the wrapped gifts, and the intimate moment had been destroyed by a single post. The feeling of powerlessness was overwhelming. Nothing could undo what was already out in the open. The messages kept coming without stopping. People she hadn't seen in years were commenting on her pregnancy. "Congratulations, future mom! What wonderful news! You guys deserve all the happiness." Sweet words that, under any other circumstances, would have been comforting, but now only served as reminders of the theft she had just suffered. Her partner, noticing the look on her face, rushed over to see what was wrong. After reading the post, he was just as shocked as she was. He tried to calm her down, saying that this didn't diminish the importance of their baby or the life they would build together. But the protagonist couldn't hear him. She was lost in a mix of anger and deep frustration.
The feeling of betrayal was deep. It wasn't just about a social media post. It was about the disrespect for something she had dreamed of for so long. It was as if her sister had ripped a piece of her own story right out of her hands. What should have been remembered as one of the happiest days of her life would now always be marked by the pain of this invasion. She slammed her phone down, trying to hold back the tears. But the notifications kept buzzing insistently, as if they were mocking her pain. Every vibration was a reminder that the world knew before her own mother or father had heard the news directly from her. As her partner held her, she kept repeating in a low voice, "That was my moment. It was my moment." The shock was still preventing her from taking any action. She didn't know whether to call her sister immediately or if she should just ignore it until she could pull herself together. The mere thought of confronting her made her feel even more exhausted. Deep down, there was also a pang of doubt. Was she overreacting? Maybe her sister really had just acted out of pure emotion. But at the same time, her intuition was screaming that there was more to it. After all, it wasn't the first time her sister had made a rash decision to steal the spotlight. Not knowing how to handle it, the protagonist locked herself in the bedroom and put her phone away. She cried silently, feeling robbed of something she could never get back. The unexpected post had transformed a carefully planned dream into an open wound that hurt more with every passing second. On the other side of town, the protagonist's parents were surprised by the news on social media. Her mother, emotional, called immediately, crying tears of joy. "Sweetie, why didn't you tell me sooner? I'm so happy." The loving tone only intensified the protagonist's pain, as this was not how she wanted the announcement to happen. Her father, more reserved, also called, but with a hint of disappointment in his voice. "I wish I had heard it from you, not from Instagram." Although he was happy, he felt sidelined for not experiencing the revelation directly from his daughter. It was clear that the damage was already done. Other relatives reacted with excitement. Cousins sent voice messages full of laughter. Aunts and uncles wrote kind messages. To everyone else, it was a reason to celebrate. But no one seemed to realize that the protagonist had not chosen this moment. It was as if the collective joy was drowning out her personal pain. Her partner tried to manage the incoming calls, asking everyone to understand that the protagonist needed some time. But the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Every new message was another reminder that her privacy had been torn away without warning. The emotional exhaustion kept building with each minute. Meanwhile, the younger sister was quietly basking in the attention. She posted stories showing off the comments, reacted with heart emojis, and reposted congratulations. She felt like she was at the center of the celebration, as if she had done the family a favor by breaking the news first. Her lack of awareness only made the situation more tense.
In the family group chat,
The discussion started to unfold. Some people were offering congratulations without thinking much about it, while others were questioning why they hadn't been told earlier. The protagonist, watching in silence, saw her life being debated as if it were just another piece of gossip. The exposure was suffocating. Her mother insisted on coming over to celebrate. Exhausted, the protagonist gently said no. She wanted distance from everyone until she could sort through her feelings. The joy of her pregnancy had turned into a heavy cloud that hung over every attempt to celebrate. For her, the greatest pain was the loss of the chance to create her own memory. That planned dinner, the wrapped baby shoes, the spontaneous smiles, it had all been replaced by likes and virtual comments. The spontaneity had died, swapped for superficial engagement. Her partner reassured her that they could create new memories, that this didn't have to be the end of the celebration. But deep down, the protagonist knew nothing would be the same. The magic of the announcement had been broken, and there was no way to get it back. All that was left was to deal with the emptiness that remained. As she tried to take a deep breath and pulled herself together, she made a quiet decision. She needed to confront her sister. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she couldn't let this invasion go unaddressed. Her love for her family was strong, but the wound of betrayal was even deeper. Gathering her courage, the protagonist picked up her phone and called her sister. The voice on the other end of the line sounded cheerful, as if she expected to be praised for the post. "Did you see how many people are happy? I just wanted to share the good news," she said, completely missing the tension in the air. The protagonist took a deep breath before answering. She tried to keep her tone calm, but the hurt spilled into every word. She explained that she had planned a special moment and that the post had ruined that dream. On the other end, her sister reacted with nervous giggles, unable to grasp the seriousness of the situation. "Oh, you're overreacting. Everyone is happy. Isn't that what matters?" the younger sister retorted in a defensive tone. For her, the positive reaction was reason enough to justify her actions. There was no room for reflection on the emotional impact she had caused. The protagonist felt her voice start to break. She tried to explain, but she could tell she wasn't being heard. Her sister kept deflecting, downplaying the situation, and even implied that her reaction was too dramatic. This only made the protagonist feel more wounded, as if her pain was invisible. The emptiness in her heart only grew. Her partner, who was listening nearby, signaled for her to end the call. He could see the sister had no intention of listening. With tears in her eyes, the protagonist hung up abruptly. She felt the rift between them had grown even wider. After the call, silence filled the room. The couple sat side by side, but no words were spoken. They both knew the situation wouldn't be resolved anytime soon. The wound was open, and the sister's lack of empathy made everything even harder.
The protagonist thought about the relationship she had always had with her sister. She remembered all the times her younger sister had stolen her thunder at birthday parties or family gatherings, but she never imagined it would extend to a moment as intimate and important as this one. For the first time, she considered creating some distance. The idea frightened her, but it also felt inevitable. After all, how could she trust someone who didn't respect her feelings? The trust that had been built over years seemed to be crumbling quickly. As she looked at the little wrapped boxes with the baby shoes inside, the protagonist felt a sharp pang of deep sadness. What was supposed to be a symbol of happiness now felt like a cruel reminder of what she had lost. The shine had gone out of her dream. With a heavy heart, she made a decision. She would not let her pain be swept under the rug. She was going to face the situation head-on, even if it cost the family its harmony. She needed to be heard, even if her sister refused to see her mistake. In the days that followed, the protagonist had to deal with the consequences of the post. Every time she left the house, she faced curious looks and unexpected comments. Neighbors, co-workers, and even distant acquaintances would approach her to talk about the pregnancy. What should have been private was now public knowledge. She tried to smile, but her discomfort was obvious.
Her partner noticed how upset she was and did everything he could to protect her, but it was impossible to stop the intrusion. People already knew. They were already talking. They had already created their own narratives about a baby who hadn't even been born. At home, the little golden boxes still sat on the table, untouched. She didn't have the heart to get rid of them, but she also couldn't look at them without feeling sad. What was once a symbol of hope now felt like a relic of a broken dream. In the family group chats, the comments didn't stop. Some people praised the sister for her joy in sharing, while others criticized her lack of sensitivity. The protagonist watched it all in silence, not responding. Any word from her could pour more fuel on the fire. The emotional pressure began to affect her physically. She felt tired, anxious, and vulnerable. She slept poorly at night, her mind constantly circling the same thought. That moment was mine, and I'll never get it back. The pain was turning into a daily burden. Her partner tried to convince her to create new ways to celebrate. He suggested an intimate photo shoot just for the two of them, or a new, more private family gathering. But to her, nothing could replace what had been stolen. The wound needed to be acknowledged before it could even begin to heal. Her sister's behavior only made the suffering worse. She kept posting excited comments about the pregnancy, acting as if she were the main character in the story. Every new social media story was like salt being rubbed into an open wound. The protagonist felt more and more invisible.
During quiet moments of reflection, she wondered if her sister would ever understand. Maybe she was simply incapable of seeing beyond her own need for attention. This thought saddened her deeply because she truly wanted to share the joy of motherhood, just not in this distorted way. Despite the inner turmoil, a quiet strength grew inside her. The baby was her priority, and she didn't want the stress to affect this new life. Between tears and deep breaths, she made a promise to herself. She would find a way to protect what was truly essential. The weight of the public exposure was almost unbearable, but it also gave her clarity. She needed to take a firm stand. If her sister wouldn't recognize her mistake, maybe it was time to show everyone just how much this had hurt her. Staying silent was no longer an option. In this troubled time, her partner became her safe harbor. Seeing how much the exposure had shaken her, he became even more attentive. He would prepare meals, make sure she didn't overexert herself, and, most importantly, remind her that the baby was the true center of everything. His calm presence was an anchor in the chaos. One quiet evening, he held her and said, "This is our moment. No one can steal that from us. What matters is what we feel right here, not what's on social media." Though his words were comforting, the protagonist still felt the weight of what she had lost. Even so, his support warmed her heart. The couple began creating small daily rituals to reclaim their lost intimacy. They talked about baby names, made wish lists, and dreamed about the future. These were simple moments, but they helped remind them that this pregnancy was theirs, regardless of the public spectacle. Still, the protagonist couldn't shake the hurt caused by her sister. Her partner, ever patient, would listen to her worries without judgment. He reassured her that she had every right to feel hurt and that she shouldn't blame herself for the intensity of her emotions. This gave her relief if it was only temporary. One morning, he surprised her with a blank photo album. "Let's document our version of the story," he said, encouraging her to write and paste pictures of the pregnancy. The idea was to build memories that belonged solely to them, far from social media and the interference of others. As she flipped through the empty pages, the protagonist felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe it was still possible to create new meaning, even if her initial dream had been stolen. She realized that her partner's love was a fundamental pillar that would help her weather this storm. However, the shadow of her sister remained. Every time she opened her phone, there was a new comment or story related to the pregnancy. Her partner suggested taking a break from social media for a while, but the protagonist knew she couldn't avoid it forever. Despite it all, she began to feel clearer about her feelings. It wasn't just the invasion that hurt, but the complete lack of empathy. If her sister had just acknowledged the mistake, perhaps everything would be different. What truly pained her was her sister's insistence on making herself the main character of their story.
During a walk together, her partner said something that stayed with her. You don't have to choose between being strong and being in pain. You can be both. Those words echoed in her heart, bringing a sense of freedom. She realized she didn't have to suppress what she was feeling just to appear serene. With this unconditional support, the protagonist began to prepare herself for what was to come. She knew a confrontation with her sister was inevitable and that she would need strength to face the truth. With her partner by her side, she felt she wouldn't be alone in this emotional battle. One day, while using the family's shared computer, the protagonist came across something unexpected. Her sister's chat history with a close friend was open. Curious, she read a few excerpts and quickly realized they were recent vents. The content left her paralyzed. In the message exchange, her sister confessed to feeling invisible ever since she found out about the pregnancy. She complained that everyone only talked about the expectant mother and that she didn't want to lose her place in the spotlight. "If I hadn't told everyone first, no one would remember me," said one of the phrases that burned into the protagonist's mind. As every line she read, her heart grew heavier. The justification of spontaneous emotion her sister had used in their first conversation was revealed to be a mask. The act of revealing the pregnancy wasn't just impulsivity. It was born of envy and a need for attention. Her pain was now mixed with profound disappointment. She felt a mix of anger and sadness, but also a strange sense of relief. She finally had confirmation of what she had always suspected. She wasn't being overly sensitive or exaggerating. Her intuition had been right. There was selfishness and rivalry hidden behind the post. With tears in her eyes, she showed the messages to her partner. He held her tight, validating her pain. "Now you know the truth. This doesn't make what you feel any less real. But maybe it helps you understand that the problem was never you. It was her own insecurity." His words were like a balm to her soul. This discovery transformed the weight of the conflict. Before, there had been room for doubt, for the possibility of quick forgiveness. Now, the feeling of betrayal took on greater proportions. This wasn't just an unfortunate post. It was a calculated act driven by a need to be the center of attention. Still, the protagonist hesitated about what to do. Showing the messages to the rest of the family could create a permanent rift. On the other hand, keeping the secret would mean carrying the pain and inundation all by herself. It was a difficult dilemma to resolve. That night, as she reflected, she gently touched her belly and whispered to her baby, "Mommy will protect you from all of this. I promise." It was a moment of vulnerability, but also of strength. The child she was carrying was her biggest motivation to move forward. She then decided that she would not stay silent. The truth needed to come out, even if it caused discomfort. She didn't want to live out the next months of her pregnancy suffocated by a secret that was eating away at her peace. The clarity of this decision brought a new determination to her eyes. The discovery of the messages didn't just confirm her pain, it also paved the way for the next step, confronting her sister in front of the family. It was time to expose the truth and finally demand respect. The protagonist decided to discreetly share part of what she had discovered with her mother. Without showing her the messages directly, she explained that she believed her sister had acted out of jealousy. The reaction was a mix of shock and denial.
"She can be impulsive, but she wouldn't do that on purpose," her mother said, trying to defend her younger daughter. Her father, on the other hand, was more understanding. Seeing his older daughter's pain, he reinforced that she had every right to feel betrayed. "You had the right to experience that moment in your own way," he stated, trying to balance the growing tension within the family. Little by little, the situation spread among the closer relatives. Some believed the protagonist was overreacting, that it was just a social media post. Others, who were more perceptive, agreed that the sister had crossed a line. And so the family began to split into two sides. In group chats, the discussions intensified. Some cousins made jokes, trying to lighten the mood, but only succeeded in making the hurt worse. To the protagonist, every superficial comment felt like a stab wound. Her pain wasn't being taken seriously. The sister, meanwhile, reacted to the criticism with sarcasm. She said that people just couldn't handle happiness, and that she had only wanted to share something beautiful. Her words further inflamed the situation, as if she were purposely fueling the rivalry. The protagonist's partner suggested they distance themselves from everyone temporarily. "You need peace, not endless arguments," he advised. But she knew that stepping away wouldn't solve the problem. Silence would only give her sister more room to control the narrative. The atmosphere at family gatherings became heavy. Tense glances, whispered comments, and cold hugs marked every meeting. The environment that once was united was now filled with resentment and distrust. The protagonist felt cornered. She loved her family, but she couldn't ignore how deeply she had been hurt. The baby she was carrying deserved to grow up in a home surrounded by peace, not rivalry. With each passing day, the decision to expose the truth to everyone gained more strength. She knew that revealing the messages could fragment the family even further, but she also believed it was the only way her pain would be validated. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about setting clear boundaries to protect her future. With a heavy heart, she decided she would wait for the next family gathering to bring everything out into the open. The confrontation wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary. The truth could no longer stay hidden.
On the other side, the sister was starting to feel the weight of what she had done. Even though she kept up a proud front in front of others, in the quiet moments, she was tormented by doubt. Deep down, she knew the post had been motivated by jealousy. The joy of receiving attention was beginning to turn into a burden. In conversations with friends, she tried to justify her actions. I just got caught up in the moment. I didn't think about the consequences," she'd say. But in her mind, the words she had written in those private messages kept echoing. Every time she remembered them, she felt a tightness in her chest. Her mother also began to pressure her, asking her to apologize to her sister. "She's really hurting. You need to understand that," she insisted. The younger sister reacted with irritation, but inside, she felt her mother was right. Still, her pride wouldn't let her back down easily. As the days passed, the divided atmosphere in the family became unbearable. Even those trying to stay neutral were starting to take sides. The sister could feel herself becoming more and more isolated, though she wouldn't admit it openly. In moments of solitude, she remembered the relationship she used to have with her older sister. She remembered the advice, the laughter, the childhood hugs. The feeling that she had broken something precious was eating away at her. But at the same time, she was afraid of losing her place in the spotlight for good. She started avoiding family gatherings, making excuses about other commitments or being tired. Her absence, however, only raised more suspicions. Some relatives saw it as a sign of guilt, while others believed she was being unfairly targeted. At night, lying in bed, she replayed everything that had happened in her mind. The likes, the comments, the initial feeling of triumph, none of it felt satisfying anymore. The emptiness left by the distance from her sister weighed much heavier. In a moment of honesty with herself, she admitted she had acted out of envy. She wanted to be noticed. She wanted to play a leading role, but she hadn't measured the consequences. This internal revelation, however, was something she still couldn't put into words. Through silent tears, she began to consider apologizing, but shame and the fear of her sister's reaction paralyzed her. What if she never trusts me again? What if everyone judges me forever? She thought, overwhelmed by insecurity. She knew deep down that a confrontation was near. The silence couldn't last forever. The guilt, still hidden under layers of pride, was like a bomb about to explode. The family dinner was scheduled for Sunday evening. The protagonist spent the whole day in silence, mentally preparing for what she knew was coming. Her partner was supportive, but the nervousness was palpable. Her heart raced just imagining the scene that was about to unfold. The house was full, forced laughter echoed in the air, but everyone could feel the tension. The conversations were surface level, as if no one wanted to touch on the subject that was hanging over them. Every exchanged glance carried secrets and unspoken expectations.
The younger sister arrived later, trying to appear calm. She wore a practiced smile, but her eyes gave her away. She knew she was about to face a difficult situation, even if she wouldn't admit it out loud. She greeted everyone, carefully avoiding direct eye contact with the protagonist. During dinner, the dishes were passed around, but everyone's appetite seemed to be missing. The silence between the two sisters was deafening. The protagonist's partner squeezed her hand under the table, giving her courage. It was the signal that it was time to speak. The protagonist slowly stood up, getting everyone's attention. Her voice trembled at first, but it soon grew steady. I need to say something that's been stuck inside me for days. This pregnancy was my moment to share, but it was taken from me. All eyes turned to her, attentive. Her sister tried to interrupt. I already said I was sorry. You're taking this too far. But the protagonist raised her hand, asking for silence. This time, she wouldn't let her pain be dismissed. She needed to be heard until the end. Fighting back tears, she described how she had planned every detail of the reveal, how she had dreamed of that moment, and how it had all been destroyed by an impulsive post. You might think it's silly, but for me, it was one of the biggest disappointments of my life. The room fell into a deep silence. Some relatives looked away, visibly uncomfortable. Others nodded their heads, understanding the seriousness. The atmosphere was heavy, but it was necessary. For the first time, the protagonist's pain was being laid bare for everyone to see. The sister, feeling cornered, tried to justify herself. I just wanted to share the happiness. I didn't mean to hurt you. But her voice faltered and her words sounded hollow. Her defense seemed increasingly fragile in the face of her sister's sincerity. The dinner, which was supposed to be a moment of family unity, had become an emotional battlefield. The protagonist knew there was still more to say, and that the discovered messages would be the final piece of this confrontation. In a firm voice, the protagonist took a deep breath and continued. I wanted to believe it was just emotion, but I discovered messages that show otherwise. The impact was immediate. The guests exchanged glances, and the sister froze in her seat. The protagonist explained, without shouting, but with clarity, that she had read conversations where her sister admitted to feeling jealous of the pregnancy and afraid of losing the family's attention. The words hung in the air like stones. They were impossible to ignore. The father, visibly upset, asked, Is it true, honey? The sister hesitated, avoiding his gaze. Her silence was all the confirmation that was needed.
It seemed like the entire room held its breath in that moment.
Their mother, shocked, brought her hand to her mouth, unable to hide her disappointment. "How could you?" she whispered, as tears welled in her eyes. Her pain wasn't just for her pregnant daughter, but for the entire family that was now divided. Feeling cornered, the sister tried to explain herself. I just didn't want to be left out. She's always been the responsible one, the one everyone admires. I just wanted to be noticed too." Her words came out in broken sentences, revealing a deep vulnerability. But to the protagonist, the confession sounded like a cruel confirmation. "Don't you see that this need to be the center of attention destroyed something I can never get back? You stole my moment, and that's going to hurt me forever." Her voice trembled, but it didn't waver. Some relatives tried to intervene, asking for calm, but the tension was impossible to contain. The family foundation seemed to be crumbling, exposing all its fragilities. The truth was out, and there was no going back. The sister, now in tears, pleaded, "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just felt so small, and I thought that if I told everyone first, I would be important." It was a sincere confession, but it came too late. The damage was already done. The protagonist, emotional, felt a mix of anger and compassion. Part of her wanted to hug her sister, and another part wanted to walk away forever. This internal dilemma was written all over her face, leaving everyone watching in suspense. The dinner ended in a heavy silence, with each family member lost in their own thoughts. The truth had been spoken, but what remained was to decide if that bond could be restored, or if the scar would be permanent. The night of the dinner became a painful turning point for everyone. The protagonist went home in silence, feeling an overwhelming emptiness. Even though she had exposed the truth, there was no sense of victory. On the contrary, the weight of the rupture felt heavier than ever. Her partner tried to comfort her, saying she had done the right thing, but the protagonist cried quietly, feeling completely drained. She wondered if she would ever be able to look at her sister again without feeling that mix of hurt and distrust. Meanwhile, the younger sister was also facing her most difficult night. Lying in bed, she replayed every word spoken at the dinner. The accusations, the looks of disappointment, and especially the hurt in her mother's eyes echoed in her mind like hammer blows. For the first time, she truly understood the real impact of her actions. Her desire to be noticed had destroyed something that could never be fully repaired. Her sister's pain was now becoming visible in her own heart as well. The next day, the family was still processing the events. Some relatives called the protagonist to offer their support. Others tried to mediate, pleading that they not let the fight become permanent. But she, still wounded, didn't want to talk about reconciliation.
For her part, the sister isolated herself. She avoided social media, canceled plans, and stayed quiet. Shame and regret were consuming her, but she still didn't know how to turn those feelings into concrete action. The protagonist felt torn. One part of her wished for her sister to sincerely acknowledge the mistake, but another part preferred to create distance to protect her own peace. It was a dilemma with no easy answer, and with each passing day, the gap between them seemed to grow wider. Her partner kept reminding her that the baby was now the most important thing. "He needs you to be strong and calm," he would say. Those words helped her stay focused, but they didn't erase the wound. Her pregnancy, which should have been a time of joy, was now marked by pain. In her solitary reflections, the protagonist thought about the future. Would her child grow up in an environment of unity or rivalry? That question echoed in her mind, adding weight to every thought. This was, without a doubt, the darkest point of their journey,
a moment where everything seemed lost and the hope for reconciliation felt distant. But as in every story, the darkness often comes before the possibility of light. A few days after the confrontation, the sister decided to gather her courage. She knew she couldn't keep running. She prepared herself emotionally, rehearsing the words she would say. With her heart racing, she sent a message asking if she could visit the protagonist in person. When she arrived, she was met with a cool reception. The partner stayed nearby, suspicious, but allowed the two of them to talk. The atmosphere was tense and heavy, as if every breath carried the memory of what had happened. The sister began to speak, tears in her eyes. "I was wrong, and there's no way I can undo what I did. I acted out of jealousy because I felt like I was losing my place in the family. But that doesn't justify anything. I hurt you, and I'm here to ask for your forgiveness." The protagonist remained silent for a few moments. Every word she heard was both a balm and a dagger. She wanted to believe in the sincerity, but the wound was still too fresh to heal easily. "You have no idea how much this affected me. It wasn't just a post. It was the feeling that my feelings didn't matter to you." Her voice trembled, but it carried a firmness. The sister nodded, crying, "I know, and I hate myself for it. I just want you to know that I am truly sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me right now, but I want the chance to earn back your trust."
The partner watched closely, assessing every gesture. He knew this conversation was an important step, but it didn't guarantee an immediate reconciliation. Still, he acknowledged the sister's courage in admitting the truth.
The protagonist took a deep breath and replied, "I accept your apology, but that doesn't mean things will just go back to normal. I'm going to need time, and if you really want to change, you'll have to prove it to me with your actions." There was a moment of silence, followed by a tentative hug. It wasn't warm, but it represented an opening. A thread of hope began to emerge, though it was surrounded by uncertainty. As she left, the sister knew this was only the first step on a long road. Trust had been broken, but perhaps there was still room to rebuild. Hope, however fragile, was beginning to stir. In the days following the apology, silence and reflection took over. The protagonist felt lighter, even though she still carried the pain of what had happened. She knew forgiveness wasn't instantaneous, but the conversation had opened a door to the possibility of healing. The sister, for her part, began to show change through small actions. She avoided impulsive posts, respected the protagonist's space, and sought closeness with discreet gestures, without being pushy. It was her way of showing she was willing to earn back the lost trust. The family, which had once been divided, began to breathe a sigh of relief. The tense atmosphere gave way to a quiet hope that their bonds could be restored. Hurt feelings remained, but so did a collective desire for unity. The protagonist focused on the baby. Every ultrasound, every heartbeat heard, every little detail of the pregnancy reminded her of the true miracle she was living. It was as if the life inside her was the quiet answer to all the pain. On a sunny afternoon, she decided to open the little golden boxes with the baby shoes again, not as a reminder of a lost dream, but as a symbol of resilience. She realized she could still create special memories, even if they were different from the ones she had planned. Her partner remained her foundation. Together, they organized a small, intimate photo shoot, just the two of them, and the baby still in her belly. There, surrounded by laughter and shared glances, the protagonist felt that, in spite of everything, she still had her own story to tell. At a later gathering, the sister was invited to participate, but with one clear condition: to respect the boundaries. This time, she listened attentively, accepting every word without resistance. It was a sign of maturity, even if it had come late. Slowly, their relationship began to take on a new shape. It no longer was defined just by rivalry,
but also by a hard-won understanding. They both knew the road would be long, but the willingness to start over was there. When the baby was born, the entire family gathered again. Tears of emotion replaced those of anger, and for a moment, all the past wounds seemed small in the face of the new life that had arrived. The cycle of pain began to transform into one of hope. The protagonist knew she would never forget the betrayal, but she also understood that it was possible to move forward. The baby brought not just love, but also a chance to rebuild bonds. It was, truly, a new beginning for her sister, and for the whole family. This story showed how even the happiest moments can be tainted by a lack of care, but also how there's always room for new beginnings. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, subscribe to the channel now. Here, you'll find accounts that move you, teach you, and make you think. Click subscribe and come be a part of our family of stories.